Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, live from the beautiful Hudson Valley, just outside New York City, and I am located in the hot and muggy ATL shouting. All right, Brock, let's get right into it. Another day, another dollar lost. Donald Trump continuing to try to figure out what the office of the presidency actually does, because he's got no clue, and neither do any of the buffoons with him. Let's begin a little bit with just a regular white guy story. Tell me what it's like to be, a white male of privilege in this environment. I hear you got a story for me.
All right. I had quick white guy stories. One, as you know, I was involved with it in the healthcare sector.
Sure.
Next, I had to get a procedure done.
Yeah.
And sitting there in the room, and they said the anesthesiologist is about to come in to see you. And all of a sudden, guy opens the curtain, kind of walks in, and it was a black anesthesiologist.
Whoa.
Why was my reaction like he could probably see on my face that I was surprised. Now, should I have been that surprised? Is that the fucking face that guy probably gets from white guys like me all the time?
Not like you.
He probably walked out there shaking his head a little bit like, oh, fuck, Every time I walk in the room, they're surprised.
I know that feeling, Brock. I know that feeling. But you were surprised because you're paying attention, actually. It didn't bother you that it was a black man that was going to be taking care of you and making sure you stay alive. You were just probably kind of surprised to see a black doctor in that part of the world.
Yeah, and because I was joking with my friends, like, yeah, I'm not worried about the doctor, but like, I'm afraid of the anesthesiologist. That guy fucks up and you're asleep and you never wake up again, right? So we had this joke as you get older and you deal with more healthcare situations. So I'm like, I'm going to shake down the anesthesiologist. Has he had his coffee? Is he on his A game today? I do not, I want to make sure he doesn't make a mistake. And the black guy turns the corner. So I didn't do that. I wasn't an asshole to him because I was like, this guy probably gets enough. He doesn't need me being kind of just a wise ass.
Right.
So that was my one. My second one, you'll find this one kind of funny. My wife went to DMV today because trying to get one of those real IDs.
Yeah.
Real ID thing where you have to get like a new driver's license or you can't fly. We're not really flying anyway, but I think she's thinking of doing a flight in like 3 or 4 months. She has like an Idaho trip, and I'm not doing the Idaho drive. So apparently there's this laundry list. It gets down to like almost like Jim Crow voting law rights things. There's this laundry list of documentation that you have to have in order to get this real ID, an original birth certificate, all this shit that particularly men have no fucking idea where any of this shit is.
Exactly.
Original Social Security, if it's a deed or a lease, it can't be a copy. It has to be a quote wet signature, like the original copy. So This is this whole thing with this new real ID that's rolling out. So my wife, because it goes faster, she tends to drive a little longer and go across the river. And for people who don't know where I live in the Hudson River, I'm on like the New York City side of the river. You go across the bridge on the other side of the river, it's more rural.
Right.
It's much more white, like the way New York State is. New York City, it's a Democratic state, but most of the state land-wise is red.
Right.
He's there online, and all these white men are online trying to get these real IDs. And she's like, none of them have the right paperwork because they don't know how to get it done.
No way.
Absolutely rip shit pissed, yelling at the people at DMV because they're being told for the first time in their lives, they don't have the right documentation. No, they can't get the new license. They need to go find their passport and find their lease or their copy of their birth certificate. So it's just a total moment. She said it was unbelievable. She was the only one in the room that had the right shit of all these old white men getting absolutely pissed because the bureaucracy was working against them this morning. So that's like a harbinger of like what's going on around the country.
Yeah, man.
It's funny because, we're talking all the time about how white men are so entitled and ran into about 10 of them this morning at DMV.
But what a great snapshot of America right now. That's happening everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
The white farmers, right? White CDC employees, right? It's happening everywhere. White academians, I mean, it's happened to white America for the first time. And I think that's why we're seeing, these protests.
Yeah.
By the way, did you hear Elon? Well, two questions. Did you hear Elon Musk's comments about the organic protests? And to buttress that question, did you get your check yet? Because he said all the protesters were being paid through the waste and fraud that had been accumulated from where I don't know. I was like, dude, what is this dude smoking?
What bank account? The answer is no and no. What bank account would that money be in, and who's writing those checks? And how do they
Exactly.
know where I live to send me the check? Or do you think they were literally being handed out at a booth as people
Right.
walked by in the protest? I mean, the arguments like that are so stupid and such an easy lie to like fact check on.
Right.
I mean, there's just such a disdain for their audience that they think that they'll just buy that shit, even though it's one derivative away from total, nonsense.
Right. So, but you know what that does for me? It lets me know that they're pissed. They don't like this shit. They don't like all these organic protests popping up in every single state with huge numbers in every single state. So, as we were trying to ascertain these protests are working, we need to do what we've been saying though. We need to ramp them up. We need to keep up the intensity, and we need to turn up the heat. We need to make them a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more in your face, and we need to basically engage in the fuckery and start shutting shit down. Because when shit gets shut down and they can't do the things that they want to do or the things that they feel like they're supposed to be able to do right away, now they start feel like regular Americans, right? They can't get what they want, they can't get what they feel like they need. That's when they start feeling like regular Americans.
Or deserve or entitlement.
Right.
Musk's just a baby, right? Because he got spanked by all his investors on his call because his company's tanking. And they
Mm-hmm.
all said, you better, either come back and run this company or let somebody else do it because the company's like going to hell in a handbasket. So now he doesn't, he's like a toddler. He doesn't get to do both things. He doesn't get to be Doji and get to be the CEO of Tesla. So now he's had to say he has to step away from Doji and only do it a couple days a week or whatever he said because he had to placate his investors who are down 40-50% and see their investments tumbling over. So like, yeah, he's a baby. So now he's lashing out.
Right.
The funny thing though, as you say about the marches and amping them up, I know the quickest way, whenever I feel like getting, spanked or my ass kicked, I'm in that mood to get punched in the face. All I do is go out on Blue Sky and write a tweet saying, Black America, we're really going to need you out here in these marches. I hear you, I feel you. And then I get back just vitriol coming back hard. I also had a nice phone call with our good friend and sometime guest appearance with Hervé Francois, who's been on the show a couple times, said, Brock, I told you, not till everything burns down. I'm not going out there. I'm not surprised that everyone tells you to shut the F up every time you ask them to get out and protest. No, two old white people protest, not enough.
Yep. Yeah, he's right. I mean, and now, but you see Black America saying, all right, let's get over 2024. Let's get over the fact that they couldn't vote for the brown lady. And let's talk about what we need going forward. Because, again, what's my famous saying? When white America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. We know that we're going to be the ones on the bottom of this thing. He's hitting anything to do with DEI, blackness, brownness, hard. So we need to figure out, hey, how are we going to fight back? How are we going to mobilize, strategize, and then execute so we are not left out of the equation? And again, like, think of all the others that need to be a part of this white-led movement, as we've been saying from the very beginning, to attack the white supremacy movement and beat it down once and for all. There's no good coming out of this white supremacy movement. We see they're not very good at governing. They don't understand diplomacy and foreign policy. They suck at the economy. 11 out of the last 12 recessions have been Republican presidents. So, why do we trust them with anything? We need to move forward with the people who want to lead and are coming forward organically. And Black America will then be a part of a discussion to let you know exactly what it's going to take to get us to become a part of this. And I think these rallies that are kicking off in these these days of community action. There's going to be 2-day events, Saturday and Sunday, that are starting right here in Atlanta on Saturday. These events will give us a real good idea of the temperature, tone, and tenor of Black American. We'll see exactly where we are, because there are going to be a lot of real good I'll call them influencers, since we're in 2025, who have a widely respected and widely recognized voice in the Black community.
Are they going to stream? Do you know if they're going to have it live, or if they're just going to do it sort of in the room? And
let me look. It sounds like it's going to be wide open. Let's see, tour info.
So obviously that's something, now we're only 2 days away from it. That's going to be really interesting. I did see like Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, who could be like all those senators, very aloof and like sort of, I always feel like tone deaf. It came out really strong in support of the Latino community today. Just talking about we can't be letting this go on. I think we meaning the country, but like when I hear we from an old white guy, to me, it also means like we, meaning we older white people need, can't watch this go on. Because, I think the Latino community kind of needs to do what the Black community is doing this weekend, and also rally together maybe and talk about like, where are we at? What's our strategy to go forward? Because the thing is that, like, the courts have been knocking down a lot of these executive orders and a lot of this bullshit, right? There's been a lot of, quote, victories in the courts. But, like, just defending against Trump's worst atrocities and saving what are basic fundamental rights is a positive. But, like, that's not a going forward strategy, right? We just can't spend the 3-4 years, trying to save our basic rights. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. We need to go on offense.
Right. And, and I'm surprised we're not hearing from groups like Maria Teresa Kumar and her Vara Latino organization. I'm surprised we're not hearing more from those groups that are out in front and led the voter registration charge for Latino Americans and have a real huge presence here. I'm surprised we're not hearing more from the Cuban community, Cuban American community in South Florida, that should just be livid with the okie doke that they got pulled on them, right? And all of the business leaders in the state of Florida who lost their workforce, the business leaders around the country who lost their workforce because their workers were afraid to come to work, and rightfully so. I mean, can you blame them? Can you blame them?
Do you think the anger isn't quite there yet because they're still shocked? Or do you think the media is just not covering them? They're not getting the forum to express the anger? Is that?
I think the media is not giving it its due justice when it comes to the coverage. I mean, Dallas has had some huge rallies from the Latino community, and you haven't seen them in mainstream media. Like, I've seen them in social media. And so I'm wondering, why is that? I know why it's happening, right? Trump's good for business for mainstream media, right?
And it pressures them, right? That 60 Minutes producer resigned, the other day. I mean, a lot of the people in the media who want to, tell certain stories and want to be highly critical of the administration,
right,
are getting, muted basically as well.
Right. And I don't know if you heard the comment he made yesterday, but it was just disgusting. He had wounded veterans in the Oval Office, and these guys were in wheelchairs, and he was making comments like, whoa, you got hit pretty good, huh? The guy's missing 2 legs. I mean, like, who says that? Right? It's so he's just so boorish and like a bull in a china shop. He's got no tact, no gravitas. This guy couldn't sell me a used car, man, much less, on foreign policy. And then he starts signing his executive orders. And he signs one on DEI and he says, yeah, it's DEI stuff, huh? We've been in this jungle for too long. Like, how do you let that fall out of your mouth and think that that's going to fly, right? And the good thing is no one's really paying attention, right? Nobody's really watching that stuff because our young people aren't watching it. Even though there was a new poll out that says 30% of them think they're worse off financially than they were a year ago, right? Now, is that going to get those young people moving? Those young people like at the lower 2/3? Because only a third of them, about 27, 25%, think they're better off than they were a year ago. You know who that is? That those are
Yeah.
the daddy's kids, right? Young, rich Republican, junior Republican club, future Republican club, with no student loans, no debt, and a platinum card in their wallet. But it's just gotten to the point where it's ridiculous. And foreign policy, yeah, hey, Russia, hey, I tell you what, we'll give you Crimea, we'll give you the land that you've already, accrued in Ukraine. Just stop shooting the missiles, huh? Like, do you even understand this conflict? Do you even understand what Vladimir Putin is trying to do? Do you get
No,
this at
he
all?
doesn't care. But
He doesn't care.
why did Marco Rubio take the job? Did he think it's a step towards president? He must have. He must have figured he had to take this job because he was as anti-Russia as any senator we had. If you just turn
Ever.
back like 8, 10 years ago, like
Right.
when he was an up and coming star in the Republican Party, and now
Yeah.
he's like, endorsing. I mean, he wrote wrote legislation or whatever that we, as even the U.S., would never acknowledge Russia's annexation of Crimea. And now
Right.
here he is on the front lines of
Yeah.
admin that's just like, oh, take it. Yeah, that's fine.
Right. And I read a blurb, I forget, which was it Reuters or AP, but I read a blurb that said, our lack of acknowledgement of, the Soviet Union's, land grabs goes back to World War II, right? Like this is not a new position for the US, right? And Russia's been doing this since the beginning of time. They're trying to, basically, reclaim the old Soviet Union. And, and again, I can't expect President Trump to understand history or to ever have read a history book. It's just ridiculous what's happening now. And I keep wondering, man, how do we fix this? How does anybody trust us again? How do we repair the damage this guy has done in 6 weeks, 7 weeks?
Look, it's going to take a while, but we have to start now. Look, look what you just went through. You went through like white farmers, Latinos, Black people, right? Anyone who cares about like democracy in the world, right? We haven't even gotten into like anti-corruption, that Trump's like hosting a dinner of crypto junkies, right? Or like paying him on the side to come to some dinner in the White House, right? So the corruption, but you just start going through the list, right? Young people now may be coming around because they're finally seeing that their lives are even getting worse. That one thing you are paying attention to is how much money they have in their bank account. You start adding these groups up, and it's an overwhelming majority of the American public. I mean, Trump has the worst approval rating right now than any president in history at this point in their term. He just beat out his first term as the worst. Usually there's a grace period, right, for a president. So, and he's in a downward mode. He's lost that veneer of being good on the economy, which was supposedly his calling card. I mean, we're backpedaling on tariffs. Like we're an international embarrassment now.
Oh, no doubt.
Bumbling, because now we're not hard on tariffs anymore because we've already blinked on China and we're already talking about lowering them. So we don't even really have an economic stance. When you start adding all these people up, this should be a massive movement of people, all of whom have like righteous indignation and enough anger to fuel a huge movement that would be overwhelming. And an overwhelming movement grinds America to a halt. And if America grinds to a halt, maybe it strikes fear into MAGA world, or at least enough in Congress where they're willing to say Trump has to go.
Right.
And we can really get the wheels of impeachment in motion, because some Republicans see the light only because they see millions of people in the street and they can't even get home from Congress because they can't even walk through the streets, and
Right.
they're eating, bread and butter for a week because they can't even get food, and they're
Right.
scared shitless of the American people. Why
Right.
can't we get all these different factions?
Right. I mean, it was only 2,500 January 6ers, right? That ended up getting charged. There are a few thousand people in D.C. that day, but, there are far more Americans that are upset about what Trump is doing versus what was happening on January 6th. That was, just a small slice of America in my estimation, especially, the rude and MAGA crowd, right? Because I don't know if you can call yourself a Republican anymore, but I delineate between MAGA and Republicans and but I don't know that you can even delineate anymore. And I think it's just a small sliver of the American population, because now they've got a new plan urging white America to have more babies.
Yeah,
Like,
$5,000, right? Just white America. I mean, come on.
Think of how just I mean, it just sounds so Cro-Magnon, man. You look at this stuff and you gotta laugh to keep from crying.
But wasn't that the same group of people that would criticize like welfare mothers that saying all they wanted to do is have kids to get checks because they were too lazy to get out and work and contribute to society? So now here we are, and now you're incentivizing people to sit at home, be at home, and just pump out kids because
we need them. Now they need them. Right.
They need the numbers because demographics are going against white people in America, which is at the root of all of this.
Yep. And it's always, and see, and that's why, when people tell me it's not about race, everything's not about race. Yes, it is. It's at the root of all this. It's what gave birth to, the Tea Party people. It's what gave birth to MAGA. All it is the Tea Party people that have gotten more extreme. That's all it is.
Yeah,
right?
They're not too far from and Proud Boys and all this and that. But I mean, they literally took the time and wrote it down for us in Project 2025. Maybe they didn't say they didn't call it the racism handbook, but it could have been called that, right? Because it's a series of policies that bring upon a white supremacist regime in a way to maintain power against the changing dynamics of America. So you look at all these policies, underlying them is either, putting more money in the hands of the entrenched white power, now fast tracking oil and gas and coal, mining on public lands, like all of this. Well, that's entrenched money, right? That's that's the money that feeds the MAGA movement.
Yep.
And therefore, they're just giving the money so that it comes back around circular. It's kind of the oldest playbook in American history. But I'm just waiting for the day when the rest of us, decent white people, hopefully there's enough of us out there with all the different minority groups, and hopefully white young people of all colors, because they just see themselves getting screwed in almost scenario, except for that small sliver of the wealthiest white ones. Why can't we get together and do something that's dramatic and loud and aggressive and intimidating? I still feel like, I think we have to it's almost our job now to mention every time that there needs to be a date. I want it to be that last Saturday in May. And instead of, we can have another 50 by 51 marches in every state, but we need one that's right in the heart of DC. Everyone's invited.
Now. Yep.
A diverse group. We're going to DC, and we're going to sit here, and we're going to make ourselves heard, and we're going to be loud, and we're going to muck things up, and we're going to be sanding the gears of government, and we're not going to let people just, live their normal, polite lives. We're going to be disruptive, and we're going to bring all these issues to the fore, and we're going to challenge current power structure, which is the MAGA movement.
And that's got to be what it is. There's no two ways about it. We could bicker about the dates, whether we do it July 4th or whether we do it, that last Saturday in May, Memorial Day weekend, when people are off and we can all get there and we can all muck up the system and mess up some of his so-called tributes that I'm sure he will have but doesn't understand. And we just, and if we just get in the way and muck up the works and make his life a living hell, just like he's doing now.
And media will have to cover it. They'll want to cover it because so many people out there, they'll think there's ratings there, right? So they'll want to cover it. They'll need to cover it. And then it will challenge Trump, and then he'll react poorly, right? Exactly. He'll react like the psychopath and the moron that he is, and he'll just reveal himself to be un-American, totally self-centered and not caring about the country. And in doing that, it peels more people away from his movement and only strengthens the opposition. But we got to get out there and do it because they keep chipping away at society and our stature internationally and making us poorer.
Right.
poor.
Right. I mean, it's
Like, what are we going to do every day? We just going to watch this happen?
right. It's ridiculous.
We
It's
can't.
ridiculous. No, and hopefully this new survey that came out will get these young people out here and get them to be a part of what's happening now, especially now that he's basically setting up the Department of Education as a collection agency to go after people with student loans.
Yeah, that's their only job now is to get paid, right? That because that's all he sees. Because if money's coming in, that's more money he can figure out how to siphon off to his fit one way or another.
Right. And give his tax cuts and benefits to his billionaire buddies, so they can put him on a board when he's done with this thing and, write him checks ad nauseum.
Yeah, he's getting fed one way or another.
Kind of way. Yeah.
It's always circling back around to him. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's interesting what you said the other day of all those Walmart and other industry leaders going into the Oval Office and saying, look, you're killing the economy. So there may be some, wealthy people that are starting to get unhappy. So maybe they'll even have some infighting. There was a rumor that the head of the Treasury and Musk almost got in a fist fight in the Oval Office.
I love it.
Like, which is understandable because how can these people get along, right? They're all so selfish and so egotistical.
Right.
No way they can really get along with each other. Yeah, they're all trying to steal from each other and from us.
And from us. Yep. Which is the scary part. All right, bro. Good stuff. Glad you're feeling better. Glad the African-American anesthesiologist took good care of you. You don't have to worry.
Yeah. I think he knocked me out for an extra 10 minutes just to fuck with me a little bit. He was like, yeah.
And then boom, he brought you back.
Yeah, I got this guy's life in my hands right now. This is fantastic.
All right, bro. Good stuff. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Peace.